Hey Punch, it's Clef from Punchboard Paradise, and I'm coming to you kind of with a different type of video here today. This is going to be a comparison video from one of my favorite games that's been in my top 25 for a long time that I absolutely love, and that original game is Santa Maria. So wasn't a hugely popular game, but it's one that myself and one of my co-hosts Richie, we both have loved, and we've played it a lot. And recently a new version, kind of an updated version, just came out, and that is Saltfjord. All right, so so you can see obviously a whole new look compared to the old box. So like I said, I'm just going to kind of go through some of the stuff here. This is a really kind of a quick impromptu video, just kind of my first thoughts. I just played a 2-player game of Saltfjord for the first time, and I just kind of was like, you know what, I'll throw my thoughts down in video and send it out there just so you guys kind of have an idea. So first of all, the game itself, and so some similarities, obviously. The basis of the actions are still the same. So in both games, you have pretty much 3 different options that you can take on your turn. Option 1 is to take an action, which is either going to be using a dice or, well, kind of using money in the original game or a new worker in the new game. So that's option 1. Option 2 is to build a building, which is going to help make your player board have more actions on it. And the last one is to pass. So fairly simple in the sense of those are your 3 options, and obviously most of the time you're doing one of the 2 options until you're done with the round. It's going to play 3 rounds, which is same thing for the original and the new version, is going to be 3 rounds. Okay, I'll kind of show you. So first of all, I'll show you kind of what the board looked like for the original game. Now, maybe not the nicest looking board, you know, especially compared to today's kind of nice looking things, but functional. So the big thing here is we used to have like what was called a prayer track that you kind of moved up. You had a conquistador track that you moved up. And then you had your shipping over here. And then this is kind of your passing area. So the entire board, you also had some special tiles that were up here for some scoring and for some different abilities that you could get during the game. So pretty simple. Right down here, I guess you could put your, you know, where your dice were, so for the dice draft. Okay. Same thing with your board. It would have the white numbers up here, have the blue numbers over here, where you would go either down or sideways with that particular dice that you drafted. And then as you go along on these, whenever you put your dice over one of the actions, you get to take that, and then you're going to continue along until there's no more actions in that row, and then you're going to put your dice on whatever that last action was, and then it's going to kind of block that action up for the rest of the round. You could build additional tiles that you went on the board, so then that way you were starting to get more actions. So like I said, that was always the second option you could do, is buy these and then put them on your board, which is what you wanted to do to get more actions. You would, you know, if you started to get good at this game, you would definitely try to fill your board up almost every single time, because you're just getting better actions when you use a dice that way. Okay, so let's kind of look at the new one. So first of all, for me to say let's look at the new board, it's gigantic compared to the old one. I mean, so this is a huge board. I mean, I can't even, you know, pull back a little bit here. So a big, huge board. It's got some similarities. I'll throw some pictures up of some of the different areas, but it's got where the buildings go, which the old board doesn't have. You just put them off to the side. It's got a new fishing track, which is kind of there in the middle. It's got a technology board, which is down here. So yeah, so it's got some different things. It's obviously much bigger. It's much more vibrant color-wise, for sure. But is it better? That's going to be the question. So then a player board kind of has 2 parts to it. You've got your main board, which is, you know, if you look at the old one, is kind of this part of it. And then you've got an additional board here for all your resources. So the resources are definitely different. The old game had wood and wheat, which the new game does also. But the old game had some gems and sugar, where this one now has scrolls and books and some other different things that you have. And then both of them had gold, which was kind of a wild resource. Okay, so there's kind of a look at the player boards. In this, the new version, which I was kind of surprised about, I should say the old version, I've got them right here, you had a bunch of resources. So you had, wheat pieces and sugar bags and wood, so you had a whole bunch of pieces. The new version has brown cubes that you just simply put onto the spot of what they are, and then that's your item that you have. So if I just had a brown cube here on the plank, I'd have a plank. So I don't know, a little bit of I was surprised that, it didn't have a bunch of cool goods or whatever still for it. But not to say the cubes work just fine. That's not really an issue for me, but surprising for an upgraded type of game for them just to kind of have some wooden cubes. But okay, so there's a little bit of an idea of what some of that looks like. Now, I was going to I kind of showed some of these tiles from the original game, Santa Maria, which you'll see have different actions. Like this one right here is just get a wheat. This other one had some trading things that you could do in it, which the new game really doesn't have that. So those are, like here's one that just shows you there's a little sugar bag. I don't know how clearly you guys can see that. But anyways, the new ones, fairly similar. It's got a little, there's your get a wheat action. Here's a get a wood action. So you've got tiles. Now, the biggest thing that is a difference so far, and I'll talk about the tiles right now when you're doing this building, is in the original game, you really had two sizes of tiles. You had a little angle one, and you had just a straight one. Okay, the angle one covered up 3 spots. The straight one covered up 2 spots. There was only one way to get a single tile, which was when you passed. It was one of the options to get a single tile, which was so important sometimes in games because you were trying to fill in your spots to activate these citizens that gave you points. This new game still has the angle, but it has large pieces that are 3 length, and then it has small buildings which are either 2 or 1 size. Now, to build these, it's a little bit of a different. There's another action, a build action, as opposed to you build these larger ones with paying I think it's a wood and a plank to build one of these larger ones. So filling in your board to me, my first game I played, seemed a lot easier because it was like, I can just go buy a 1 and fill it in, as opposed to the original game. At best, you were going to have 3 single tiles, and that means you had to pass first every time to get it, and you didn't take one of the other actions when you passed. So it was a lot tougher. I'll say that for sure. You had to really kind of almost plan out a little bit more for it, where this one seemed a little bit more loosey-goosey to me. So anyway, what it is, it's a newer thing, and it's certainly, I think if new people are playing it, this is going to be a lot easier, where they're not going to feel quite as constricted of how do I build to kind of fill this board up. It also, I'll tell you, it felt a lot easier to build, and I'll talk about that here in a moment when I talk about how the getting the resources in this upgrade action. So those are some of the tiles. So in the original game, there were really 2 tracks that you were working on, and I kind of showed these earlier, where you had what was called the prayer track, and then you had the conquistador track. Now, obviously, I think that I'm 100% want to make sure that we are sensitive to all people out there, and I don't ever want to, make anything where I'm trying to be insensitive. And I realize, it's not a good theme, okay? I mean, moving up a conquistador track where you're basically, conquistadors going and taking over other lands that weren't theirs, unfortunately, bad times in history, which obviously a lot of bad times in history, but I always felt this is very abstract, though. I never felt like it was something that I was like, I'm going out, because you're not really actually going out and conquering anything, but I get it. I'm not going to talk about in this video. I'm just simply talking about the actions themselves. So just, if anybody has that question, I'm not really debating whether or not it's a you know, what the theme-wise I'm not talking about, okay? So I'm just going to talk about the actual action. So the prayer track, whenever you got a prayer, you got to move up it. You could always spend an additional wheat to move up another spot. Now, the thing that I will talk about right away with this is how you got additional dice. So there, in the original game, there was a white dice, which you started every game, every round you had 3 of them, 3 where you were going to use. And then you got 1 blue dice. And the faster you moved up this track, you would get your additional blue dice. So you'd get them, you could get all 3 of your blue dice in round 1, which was was a strategy to do. In the new game, there's no prayer track in the new game. You simply get what the extra die in this game. In the new one, it happens to be orange. You get 1 in the first round. You'll get your second one in the second round, and you get your third in the third round. No way to get them early. So there's no like, ooh, I'm going to try to go do that to get them early like there is in the original. You're just out to get. You just have to wait to get them. Okay. Probably the first thing that I'll say that did not like. I liked the fact that this was something where you could concentrate on this and try to get your dice faster so that you were getting more actions. Okay, so first thing that I'll say, wasn't necessarily a huge fan of that. Okay, the next track that you kind of worked on in the original game was just this Conquistador track, and you just moved up it. It gave you victory points if you were in the lead or second or third, depending on how many players that you were. And then also you could get gold resources whenever you crossed it. One thing I forgot to say on the prayer track, it also gave you what we called these priests, which are these little tokens that allowed you to get some bonuses, what gave you some additional goods, or gave you some abilities, or gave you some in-game scoring things. Okay, so those were kind of the main tracks. Okay? Then, like I said, you had the shipping, which one of the actions is you shipped, and you put you'd have to pay some goods, and you put them off to the side here, and then you're going to get these bonuses at the end of each round. You're going to get either some money, moving up one of the tracks, or the lovely happiness point, which is right there, which people that always complain about this game because these happiness points are just ridiculously crazy. I don't even know why they're like that. But anyway, so that's kind of how the original worked. The new one, like I said, there's no prayer track. There's no Conquistador track because, well, it's a fishing, theme. So what are you doing? Fishing, you're fishing. What are you doing fishing? That's my language for the day, guys. You are fishing. One of the actions now is you can have this harbor that you're at with a ship. You can come up and you can try to collect, okay, well, quick, I'm going to talk about one of the other big differences. The original game, you had coin. And you used coin to purchase things or take actions. In the new game, you have fish. And fish are kind of like your ability to manipulate the dice. You can buy different resources potentially, or you can do different things with fish. So when you move up this track, a lot of times you're going to get fish. Sometimes you'll get wood. So this is just kind of a resource thing for you to kind of grab resources. Okay. So that's the first action here that's different. The other action that's completely different in this game is this technology track, which is right down here. Okay. And now one of the actions, which is this little cog thing, you can move up these tracks and you have to pay some resources, and then they're going to give you different abilities. Like they may give you a gold here. They may let you, one of the things with the shipping is you have to actually put your stuff on a boat and then return with it. So this one lets you flip it over so you'd have more spaces to put stuff on your boat. Get you different abilities. So there's some different things. It also, this is probably the biggest thing, this track right over here, this will get you additional workers. There's no money in this version. So workers are how you activate additional spots. In the original game, you'd put $1 on the first one you'd want to activate. Then you'd put $2 on the next one and $3 on the next one. So in this one, the best you'd ever do is take 3 additional actions with workers. And that's only if you've gotten up this technology track, because you only start with 1 worker that you can use. Okay? So that's one of the first, those are the big differences, I should say. So you got just the basic tracks in the first one. And this one, you've got, some technology tracks, and then you got the fishing. So those, like I said, are the differences. The shipping Now let me rephrase this. The orders for how you do shipping, in the original game it was just kind of called shipping. In this one, I don't want to confuse it with the fishing shipping track. This one, you're just fulfilling these orders by paying a gold or paying a wheat and a wood or whatever, and then you're going to get some victory points, and like I said, you put them on the side of your board and you take actions. That's the exact same in both games, so there's nothing different there. Okay. Really, that's, I'm hitting the main things that are different. Oh, no, I apologize. I got one more thing that's big and different. And that is, as I said, is the building of the tiles. I've already talked about how there's more tile. There's different sizes in the new version. The original version, you just had the 2, unless you were playing one of the expansions, but still it was just a bigger, longer one. It wasn't any smaller ones. When you're playing this, I should say, let me rephrase. When you're playing the first one, you're always going to put out 5 tiles of each shape, and they're all available. So like I could be like, well, I really need one. I really need wood. So I'm going to go try to get one that gives a wood action. And if my opponent happens to get to the one before me, well, I'm out of luck. In the new version, there's 2 piles of each size. And so there's really 2 choices that you have. And there's no going away, like they don't go away or anything like that. They're just there. So if all of a sudden there gets to be one that neither one of you wants, it's just going to kind of stay there and be in the way. And for that matter, if you really needed a certain action, if it's not one of the 2 that's kind of up in that size that you need, then you're just out of luck. So the last thing I think I'm going to talk about with the 2 games here, like I said, I really want it to be known this is kind of some initial thoughts. I've only played the Saltfjord one time, 2-player, so it's not an end all. I'm just saying here's some of the differences I see. The new way that you do goods. So the original one, you just had certain amounts of, you just put your goods there. You could potentially buy some goods and you could sell them, but there was really not an upgrade. Like if I had a gem, I couldn't turn it into a sugar bag or something like that, okay? In this, you can start, so like you can see here, you can't see, some fish right there. So if I have a cube here and I get to take an upgrade action, I can take that fish and turn it into a wood, a wheat, or a scroll. And then let's say I have another upgrade action. I now can turn that wood into a plank. And then finally, I can turn that plank into a gold. Now I can't go across. I can't turn a wood into a grain of wheat or grain or whatever this is. And I can't turn a wheat into a book. So I have to go straight up. But obviously the fish I can turn into any one of these things. And any of the top ones I can turn into a gold. I found it a lot easier to get the goods that I wanted than I did in the original game. The original game could be kind of tough sometimes. Like, I got to get a couple of gems. It was a lot harder. This game, it was like, I need to get a book. Okay, well, I'll just do this, do a couple upgrades, and boom, and I'm there all of a sudden. So a little bit easier. Okay, so final thoughts just between the 2 games right away. So my biggest thing I'll say is I think Saltfjord is a lot more approachable for new people. I think it's going to be a little bit easier for new people. Like with the different buildings that you can build, the technology track is just is a cool thing. Obviously, those technologies are really cool when you move up them. They give you cool abilities. The fishing's kind of a fun thing. Where the original game, I'm not going to lie to you, moving up the Conquistador track is kind of boring. There's not a lot to it. Moving up the prayer track is, especially the prayer track, once you've kind of gotten to your bonus dice and then you've gotten to your priest that you get to put up for different abilities, there's not a lot to it. And eventually, if you get to the end, you're just kind of ringing it for victory points. So for me, I don't think that that's something that I liked. I like the tightness in Santa Maria where it's hard to kind of get your board full. It's hard to kind of, keep up with trying to do those tracks and yet still trying to do the shipping. I'm not saying it's hard, but it feels harder. It feels like almost you have to think a little bit more. Where with the new one, I was just like, yep, I'll just go get that building that I need now for that shape, and I'll throw it there. So I'm not saying that I didn't like Saltfjord because it still has the really cool mechanisms that I really like about that dice drafting, tile placement, moving your dice down and getting all those actions that Santa Maria does. But I think right now, if you had to say, well, you can only keep one. Now, I'm going to guarantee it. If you said to me right now, I could only keep one, I'm saying I'm keeping Santa Maria. Now, for one thing, now Santa Maria has, a whole huge thing of expansions that there's different ones that are really cool, including a one versus all thing that's in Santa Maria that's a lot of fun. I'm keeping Santa Maria. Even since, moving up just the Conquistador track and the prayer track sometimes are not all that exciting. The game itself, I think I just like it better. Now, granted, I've played Santa Maria, tons of times, where Saltfjord once, but I just didn't get quite the same feel that I did from Santa Maria that I did with Saltfjord. I don't know. Stay tuned. I definitely plan on playing it more, see what happens when I play it at a 3 or 4 player game. Be really interesting when I get to play this with Richie to see kind of what Richie's feelings are on it. But like I said, I thought I would at least bring you guys a first impression video of Saltfjord and kind of the comparisons between Santa Maria and Saltfjord. So anyways, that's about it. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. I would love to answer them best that I can. If you're interested in all about the podcast that I do, Punchboard Paradise, and you've never listened, please come on over and take a listen. You can find us on all the major apps out there. And like I said, if you need to email us, I do have punchboardparadise@gmail.com. And you can always join the Discord and join the discussion. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.